Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling that audiobook on Living Untethered that you sent in.
I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with how it mixes science and spirituality.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Definitely thought-provoking. So, are you ready to help me unpack all this?
Absolutely. Let's dive in and see what we find.
Okay, so strap in, listeners. This deep dive is going to challenge how you think about, well, pretty much everything. Yourself, the world, the whole shebang. The book argues that you can have a life full of freedom and peace,
Ah,
but there's a catch.
to get there, we have to start at the very core.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where is this core exactly?
With you. Not your body, not your thoughts, but the you that's observing it all.
The you behind the you, huh?
Exactly. The book uses this analogy. Imagine looking at pictures of yourself from like your whole life. The photos change, right? But the you looking at them, that stays the same.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it takes that idea even further to your body. I mean, your body has changed a ton over time, but that you experiencing it all, that's always been there. It's like the one constant in a sea of change.
Right, and it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
The book even says that this you experiences both like the world when you're awake and the world when you're dreaming, even when you're unconscious.
Whoa. Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah, it's a pretty big concept to wrap your head around. Like, if you're not your body or your thoughts or even your feelings, then who are you? That's the question this whole deep dive hinges on.
It's a good question, and I am ready to dive in.
Well, it gets even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
The book goes on to describe the entire universe, like how it came to be with all this super cool science.
Hit me with it.
Okay, ready for this? The atoms that make up everything in our world, they were actually made in stars.
Wait, so you're saying like the atoms in my body right now,
This microphone
this entire planet.
all came from exploding stars billions of years ago.
Okay, now that is wild. I'm actually made of stardust. That's incredible.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right?
But how does all this connect back to, living untethered?
That's where it gets really cool. The book uses this cosmic perspective to
Right.
point to something even bigger. Every moment we experience is the result of billions of years of cause and effect. It's like
Yeah.
this intricate web of events stretching all the way back to the Big Bang and leading up to, well, right now.
So, like, one thing leads to another, and we're just part of this massive chain reaction.
Exactly. And the book says that, like, accepting this chain of events, it's actually a form of surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
realizing that we're not actually in control of how everything unfolds. Like, it's less about me making things happen and more about being part of something much grander.
Huh. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of freeing, isn't it?
But if we're not the ones in control of all this, then what's our role? Where do we even fit in?
That's the big question, right? And the audiobook says the key to figuring that out lies within our own minds and hearts.
Oh, okay. So it's about understanding how they work.
Exactly. How they shape what we see and experience, and how they can either keep us stuck in suffering or help us break free.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So let's break this down. First up, the mind. The book describes it as kind of like an empty canvas, right?
Yeah,
One that takes information from our senses and paints a picture of the world around us.
exactly. Like a high-tech projector or something, taking stuff from the outside world and making our inner world.
Makes sense. But then it talks about this fall from grace, where our preferences and judgments start to cloud things up.
Oh, yeah. Remember that example with the rattlesnake and the butterfly?
Oh yeah, right. We cling to the good stuff and try to avoid the bad. Seems pretty natural to me.
Totally. But the book says these reactions, they create these lasting impressions.
They call them samskaras.
Right, some scars. And they basically shape how we see everything.
So like, we're not seeing the world clearly anymore. We're seeing it through the lens of all our past experiences and stuff.
It's like we're wearing these colored glasses that distort reality.
Okay, now I see how that could hold us back. So how do we like get rid of these glasses and see things for how they really are?
Well, that's where understanding the heart comes in.
The heart.
Yeah, and the book is clear about this. It says that you are not your heart. You're the one experiencing it. It's like recognizing that your heart, with all those emotions and stuff, that's just something you experience, not who you are deep down.
It's like separating myself from the emotional roller coaster.
Exactly. Think of it this way. The book describes the heart like a spring.
A spring.
Yeah, with energy flowing through it, creating these ripples on the surface.
And those ripples are our emotions.
Bingo. Sometimes they're calm and peaceful, sometimes a bit more, turbulent.
But how do those samskaras, those impressions we were talking about, how do they play into all of this?
Ah, good question. Those samskaras can actually block the flow of energy in the heart.
So they're like little dams.
Perfect analogy. They make it harder for things to flow freely. The book suggests that this is why a lot of us end up seeking validation from outside sources, like we're trying to fix an internal problem with something external.
Makes sense when you put it like that.
But the book has this really beautiful idea about love. It says that real love isn't about finding someone to complete you.
Tell me more.
It's about recognizing the source of love that's already within you. It's about clearing out those blockages, those samskar dams, and just letting love flow freely.
Okay, I like where this is going. But how do we actually do that? How do we clear out those blockages?
Well, the book gives us 3 techniques for working with the mind and heart.
3.
Positive thinking, mantra, and relaxation and release. They all offer different ways to kind of chip away at those blockages and create more peace within yourself.
Positive thinking. I've heard of that. But honestly, it feels a bit cheesy sometimes. What does the book say about it?
It's definitely not about pretending everything's perfect, that's for sure. The book says it's more about consciously replacing negative thoughts with positive ones.
So, like, if you catch yourself thinking, I'm so bad at this, you would immediately counter it with, I'm learning and getting better every day.
Yep.
It's all about shifting your focus. It's like changing the channel on the TV if you don't like what you're watching.
I like that. What about mantra? I've heard that word, but not really sure what it means.
It's basically repeating a word or phrase over and over again.
Any word.
Well, it can be a traditional mantra in Sanskrit, or maybe a name for God, or even just a simple affirmation like, I am peace, or something.
So it's like creating a mental anchor, something to hold on to when things get rough.
Exactly. You practice it during quiet times, even just for a few minutes, and then you can bring it to mind whenever you need it.
Okay, starting to see how all of this ties together. Positive thinking helps us reframe thoughts. Mantra gives us an anchor. What about this relaxation and release thing?
That one's all about learning to just observe your thoughts and feelings, without judging them or trying to fight them.
So like letting them just pass through.
Exactly. The book keeps saying you are not your thoughts or emotions, you're the awareness experiencing them. Right, we're not our thoughts and emotions, we're the ones having them. But honestly, that's way easier said than done. How do you just sit back and watch when you're feeling completely overwhelmed?
It takes practice, for sure. The book compares it to a tug of war.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine you're on one end of the rope and a whole football team is on the other.
Oh, no.
You're trying to hold on, but they're slowly pulling you in. You know that feeling. Super exhausting.
Yeah, just thinking about it makes my arms hurt.
Now, what if, instead of fighting so hard, you just let go of the rope?
I'd probably fall flat on my face, but hey, at least the struggle would be over, right?
That's exactly the point. It's about surrendering to what is rather than trying to fight it. When we resist those thoughts and emotions, it creates so much tension. But when we relax and just let them be, they can pass through like clouds.
So, not ignoring them, not suppressing them, just acknowledging them and letting them go.
Yep. It's like watching a movie. You can be completely engaged in the story, but you know it's not real.
Okay, I see what you mean. So, with all 3 of these techniques, positive thinking, mantra, and relaxation and release, it sounds like the goal is to just create a calmer, more peaceful inner world.
Right, and to start chipping away at those samskara dams that are causing all the blockages.
Blockages in our hearts?
Exactly. The book talks about it like a river, when a river's blocked by debris, the water gets all stagnant and yucky. But when the blockages are cleared, the water flows freely again.
And that's how we can experience that free-flowing energy of love and peace within ourselves.
You got it. And the best part is, these techniques aren't just nice ideas. They can actually make a real difference in your life.
Like how?
Well, imagine you're stuck in traffic, right? And you start feeling all impatient and frustrated. Instead of letting those emotions take over, you could use positive thinking, your mantra, or even that relaxation technique to shift your experience.
So instead of reacting in those same old ways, we can choose a different response.
Exactly. It's like learning a whole new set of skills for dealing with life's ups and downs. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about the self, the universe, the mind, the heart, those pesky samskaras, and even some techniques for working with them. Phew. It's a lot to take in. But what's the main takeaway here? What's the big picture?
Well, the big picture is this. We tend to get trapped in this cycle of trying to control everything to fit our preferences,
Yeah.
like trying to make the world match our samskaras.
And that just creates a constant struggle.
Totally, because reality rarely cooperates with our plans. It's like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole.
So we're basically exhausting ourselves trying to control everything and everyone around us.
Pretty much. But the book offers a different way. It says that instead of trying to control everything, we should focus on releasing those blockages. Learning to accept reality as it is without judging it or resisting it.
That sounds incredibly hard, but also kind of amazing.
Right. But the big question is, how do you even begin to do that? How do you learn to just surrender, especially when life throws you curveballs? It's definitely a journey, not a quick fix. But luckily, this book gives us a roadmap and some tools to help us along the way.
It does sound like a challenge, but the payoff, like not feeling so stuck in those old patterns, that's pretty enticing. So where do we even start with all of this?
Well, the audiobook talks a lot about having a regular spiritual practice.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be anything too formal, It could be like taking a few minutes every day to meditate.
Or like journaling.
Yeah, journaling, or just spending some time in nature, just being quiet and reflective.
So it's more about creating space for that inner awareness we were talking about.
Exactly. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you practice tuning into that inner world, the stronger that connection gets.
And I guess the stronger that connection, the better we can handle all the stresses of everyday life, right?
Right. That's the idea. But, even with a good spiritual practice, life can still throw us curveballs. So how do we apply these ideas about living untethered to, work, relationships, just everyday stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, the book emphasizes this. Living untethered isn't about running away from the world or pretending everything's perfect. It's about changing how we relate to those challenges.
So it's not about avoiding responsibility or anything like that.
No, not at all. It's more about being in the world but not getting totally swept up in it.
Like finding that balance between engagement and inner peace.
Exactly. The book says that as we build a stronger foundation within ourselves, through those practices we talked about, we actually become more resilient.
So we're less likely to get knocked off balance when things get tough.
Right, because we have that inner sanctuary to come back to no matter what's going on outside.
That's a really nice image. But let's be honest, there will be times when it all feels like too much. What about those days when we slip back into old habits or just feel completely lost?
The book is big on self-compassion, like being patient with yourself.
Okay.
It reminds us that it's a journey, not a race. And we're going to mess up sometimes.
Makes sense.
We're going to fall back into those old patterns. It's normal. The key is to just be kind to yourself, Remember that setbacks are part of the process.
So, like, treat yourself the way you would treat a friend who's going through a hard time.
Yeah, give yourself that same understanding and kindness. And the book also says to remember that every time you become aware, every time you let go, every time you experience peace or joy, that's a win.
It's like those small victories along the way are just as important as the big picture.
Exactly. It's not about reaching some perfect state. It's about enjoying the journey.
Okay, I like that. Sometimes I get so caught up in the destination that I forget to appreciate the ride,
Totally. And the book reminds us that this moment right now is all we really have. The past is gone. The future's uncertain. But right now, in this moment, there's so much potential.
It's like a permission slip to just let go of all those worries about the past and the future and just be here now.
You got it. And the book suggests that this is where the real magic happens. In those moments when we choose to be fully present, with an open heart, ready for whatever comes our way.
It's interesting. This idea of surrender keeps coming up.
Yeah, it's definitely a central theme. And it's not about giving up. It's about aligning yourself with life and trusting that you're right where you need to be.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the self, the universe, the mind, the heart, those samskaras, and even some techniques for working with them. I feel like I've learned so much.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. But this is just the beginning,
It is.
Yeah, this deep dive, it's given you a good foundation.
Okay.
But the journey of living untethered, that's an ongoing exploration.
So what's next? What would you say to someone who wants to dive deeper into all of this?
I would say trust the process, surrender to how things unfold, and be open to the journey. You've got everything you need within you to do this.
It's like we already have all the tools. We just need to learn how to use them.
That's a great way to put it. And the book encourages us to step into that possibility, to have the courage and the compassion to embrace this human experience.
That's beautiful. So now that you've got the knowledge, the tools, and hopefully some inspiration, what's standing out to you the most? What feels most relevant to your life right now?
What really struck me is that anyone can live this way, no matter where they are on their journey. It's not about achieving some like far off state of enlightenment. It's about making those small choices each day to connect with that inner peace and freedom.
I love that. It's about those everyday moments, those little shifts in perspective.
Exactly. And the book reminds us that we're not alone in this. We're all waking up together, supporting each other as we remember who we really are.
It's like we're all in this together, figuring it out as we
And
go.
as each of us awakens, it creates a ripple effect. We help create a more peaceful world just by being who we truly are.
So it's not just about personal transformation. It's about making the world a better place.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive.
It is, but this is just the beginning of your exploration. I hope this deep dive has given you some new insights and inspired you to take those first steps towards living a more untethered life.
Remember, the journey inward is always the most rewarding. So, what resonated with you the most today? What are you curious to explore further? Keep those questions in mind as you move forward.
And until next time, happy exploring.